Well, hi everybody, Colin Archibald. I want us, as we start to work on learning to program mobile devices, to put it in historical context, what's going on. And I think it's kind of fun, but it also helps you to get an appreciation of what should you do when you're working with mobile software development. So let's do historical context first. There are people who say quite confidently that the interconnectivity that we get now with mobile devices is the biggest change that we have since since television, since radio, since the printing press. Everyone has an opinion of it's the biggest thing since sliced bread. And I'm not really sure that when we look back on this, that it won't be considered our interconnectivity with the internet. I mean, in the distant future, 1995 to 2020, kind of in there will be when we all became connected. So let's go back and think about when other things happened, and look at the timeline. It usually helps if you put this in a personal context. So in your life, in your family, how far back do you remember people who remember things? And then put technology on that timeline, and that kind of helps you get a perspective of it. And my great-grandfather was the oldest person that I remember interacting with, and he was born during the Reconstruction, around 1871, 1870, in there. I don't even really remember. The Reconstruction of the United States after the Civil War, in case you were wondering. Reconstruction, what does that mean? So 1870, obviously no electricity, no internal combustion engines. My grandfather was born in 1900. Still no electricity in wide use, or getting close to where electricity would be put into people's homes. Horses, machines, but no internal combustion machines. So farm machines were mechanical devices. And so fast forward a little bit, because you're getting tired of this. 1920-ish, electricity and internal combustion engines. 1935-ish, 1940-ish, radio. Radio took a long time to get adopted because it was really very expensive compared to, compared to now. People did not have the money to buy electronic things. And electronic things in themselves, you just didn't have a lot of them. So radio took quite a long time, and it would be funny to say that my parents' generation called radio the wireless. So wireless means something quite different from having a radio broadcast nowadays. So television in around 1950, and I'm guessing these numbers. Color television around 1960. People didn't really get it pervasively until 65. Guessing at numbers. Computers, very, very first ones that were commercially used in businesses, 1960s. Almost everyone was converting their data to electronic formats in the 1970s, so business information went from paper to magnetic tape or punch cards or paper tape, some way of storing coded information. 1970s. 1980s, the desktop computer happened. So the Apple, I guess it was just called Apple, the first one, I don't know. And the PC, the IBM compatible PC, 1980s. Then those got faster and faster through the 80s and the 90s. The next really, really big thing that happened, the desktop computers, the Macintoshes and the IBMs with Intel processors got faster through the 80s and 90s. But the next really big thing to happen was internet connectivity. And internet connectivity going into people's homes, first with dial-up modems. So the data communication was done on telephone lines. So what became known as broadband connectivity. And broadband connectivity in people's homes changed everything. So that was the big one. It changed the way we shop, the way we do banking, how we socialize. It changed how government works. It changed education. Anthropologists are already looking at what changes happened in the 90s with the broadband interconnectivity. So that's 20 years ago, a little less than 20 years ago. And now we're at the place where it is expected that people will have broadband connectivity in their homes. So the expected way of interacting with people online is with broadband connectivity. I don't even know if we even say that anymore, because everyone has a cable or a DSL, some sort of a modem that allows digital signals from inside the house to get outside, and vice versa, in a fast way, in the probably millions of characters per second. I wonder exactly what the definition of broadband is. I'm not sure, and I don't know that I care. So I have about 20 megabaud in my house, and so that changes how we do everything. And now we're going to have this connectivity on our person. So we're going to carry around these computers that we call smartphones. Well, they are computers that happen to have a little bit of telephone technology in them. And the communication mechanisms that they use, the one over the wire, it's not over the wire, the one that, that is different with these devices than with other devices. So your laptop communicates through Wi-Fi, for example, and Wi-Fi has the reach of one house. That's kind of the definition of Wi-Fi. Bluetooth is one person, and then near field is kind of what you have in your hand. So we have all of these different distances, but what we call 4G, the network that mobile devices use to communicate with, is getting faster and faster and cheaper. So we will very soon get to the place where it will be the norm to expect people to have complete connectivity, broadband connectivity on their person all the time. What does that mean? What will it change? And it's important that we think about this. You guys are going to be important in how we go forward with this. And I know you're only one class, but you are the only class in Central Florida who are now saying, we are going to look at mobile devices. We're going to learn to program them. We're going to decide, at least in part, what goes on them and how they're used and what it changes. If it doesn't change anything, there isn't any use of having it. And we don't know what it will change. It wasn't invented to change a specific thing. So what will it change? We can kind of learn from when the internet went into people's homes and now it's the norm to have broadband connectivity in the homes. We know that some things changed for the better and some things changed in quite a different way. So what are the big uses of the internet, the broadband communication into the homes, the data that's going across these broadband internet connections from people's homes? The top three things are pornography, games, and gambling. Okay, so things have changed because of those. So now we have this new thing called social media. Social media as a term isn't even really well defined. It means kind of what we have now, what applications that we're using to communicate with socially. So Facebook and Twitter, and I was trying to remember the names of the failed ones before Facebook. I know I had some accounts on other ones. But the use of social media, communicating with potentially everyone in the world, that changes things. It changes things. It means that you can have a discussion with everyone in the world who's interested in that particular topic. That changes things. Anthropologists are looking at that as kind of a tribalism, where an online tribe gets formed for some purpose. It's not to hunt for food and defend against the neighboring tribe, but it is kind of a tribal organization that's happening with complete interconnectivity over long distances. There are some good things that can come from mobile devices having broadband and continuous connectivity 24/7, and there are certainly some bad things. We have to be a little bit careful in our own use of mobile devices that they don't become a distraction. We are increasingly unable to pay attention to a particular topic for any length of time. So this is, I've been talking about 14 minutes, is that true? And I would wager that not very many of you have made it to this point in this discussion without going and doing something else. So an email popped up, or your cell phone gave you the notification of something. If we restrict ourselves to being able to deal with situations that only the situations that can be dealt with in less than 10 minutes, then we've taken a huge step backwards. If we can only pay attention to something for 10 minutes, then we can only solve problems of a certain complexity or only deal with situations of a certain complexity. And the mobile devices certainly provide that as a big risk for us. A friend of mine was lucky enough to have lunch with the president of Intel, and I said, give me the short version of what was said that was surprising. And the answer was, what we need more of in the future won't be technology professionals, it will be psychology professionals. Well, holy cow, this is Intel saying this. Where is that coming from? So here's one of the other risks of this continuous interconnectivity. When the problem won't be that it's hard to create technology. The problem will be that it's hard to convince people to give you their money. So, in the mobile world, some people are referring to it as the paywall. How far do you get without having to pay something? And what are these psychology majors going to do? Well, they are going to try to figure out what is the technology, what is the best way of interacting with people so that those people will become customers instead of potential customers. And there's now something called A/B testing. You should be familiar with A/B testing. If you took the Software 1 class, you're familiar with A/B testing. So it's not alpha beta, it's unrelated to that. It means you release two versions that are slightly different in some way, and one of them performs better than the other. So you take that version, and then you modify it some way and release two more versions, A and B. And you keep doing this until you optimize how much money you can get from your potential customers. And it doesn't matter what it is. It might be a game, and you realize that you're being played while you're playing the game, and you're being played in a way that has, using large numbers of potential customers, you're playing a game that has been optimized so that you are most likely to give some money. And playing the game might be shopping, or it might be a shooting thing, or crushing candies, or whatever you want. But A/B testing and the very rapid optimization of how to get someone to give you money. It's a little bit cynical, isn't it? It's a little bit cynical to think that this is what will be important. But it is. If you have a game that people don't get addicted to, you're not going to be successful. So your objective is to harm people by having them addicted to a game. We have to be careful. In our own personal lives, we have to be careful that we are not distracted by the new technologies, that we can still maintain a conversation for a length of time so that the conversation can be interesting. Or we can maintain our attention on a problem so that the complexity of the problem can be solved, that a higher complexity problem can be solved because we can pay attention to it for a longer time. A whole lot of risks. The next time I sit down to talk to you about mobile software, I'm going to talk about the different kinds of devices and the different kinds of software that we can write that run on mobile devices. But this one I think is important before we even really get seriously into developing mobile applications, that we think about what it's going to do and the history and the context of it. Why is it going so fast? For goodness sake, why is it going so fast? Television technology did not change every year. Why is mobile device technology changing every 3 months? There's a bunch of reasons. I know that you know some of them. You can distribute software instantly now. It used to be that when you had something new, you had to put it in a box and send it to the stores and wait for the people to come to the stores and buy one. Software is delivered instantaneously. Even the hardware is going faster than it ever went before. And why is that? How often do you buy a new television? At my house we had a television, the same television for 20 years. A great big thing, and someone came into the house to repair it quite often. Why do we get a new phone every year or two? They're quite expensive. They're much more expensive than it takes to manufacture them, that's for sure. So somebody's making a ton of money on this. A ton of money. It's a huge economic impact. One of the ways, and probably the most common way of getting a new smartphone, is to get it for a very low price, but you have a contract that you have to pay over a couple of years or 3 years. So you're getting a device that you're paying for month by month that makes it look cheaper, or even free. Get a free phone with a 2-year contract. So this marketing scheme is allowing the hardware to turn over very, very fast. And the price of them is so much higher that the potential of the companies that are doing this, they want to turn over those phones as fast as they can. So they want a little smartphone to still be sold for $600 or $700, which is the current price if you add up how much you will pay for it over the term of the contract. This is odd because a reasonably good laptop is only about $300 now. Not a good one, but a reasonably good one that is usable. And $600 for a smartphone. The money is so large, and the incentive to get the newest one into people's hands, the economic benefit of doing that, is causing the technology to go very, very fast. That makes what I would refer to as a hostile software development environment. There are no books. Okay, there are very few books that are current because it takes a year to get a book on paper into people's hands, and things change significantly in under a year. So we're not going to do it with books anymore. We have lots and lots and lots of different devices, and that makes the software development problem difficult. You want to develop software that will run on as many of them as possible, but then you will have problems with some of them. And how many of them will you make a strategic decision for how many of them it's okay that it won't work on the software that you develop. It's a lot of complicated things based on the fact that it's going very, very fast. Okay, don't hesitate to sit down and think about this for a while. What is going to be the impact of this? If it's a negative sum impact, then we shouldn't do it. But what happens is going to happen. But we can influence it. We can bend the curve by developing the software and encouraging the development of software that is to the benefit of the people, of the society, of the economy, and not to the detriment. Let's enjoy living in this time where the technology is changing faster than it ever has. See you next time.